Hello, hello, and welcome back to another edition of Architect Reacts. And I think right now we're going to speak about this one. It's another featured. I wonder how these get featured. I wonder if they pay them or if they just like them or what. But I've already spoken about this public space, this restaurant, and this is a house here. So let's take a look at it. The Shiiba House, maybe Shiiba, the Shiiba House by Mandai Architects in Kyoto, Japan. What are they? Two projects. They're also in Tokyo. It's really cool. Um, so this house off the bat looks like some kind of take on a farmhouse or just all wood, very open. I assume it'll close, but I think the main point's to have a breeze through. Okay, so here's an aerial shot. Look at that. That is stunning. Here's the house, and it has these like fin-like structures, and then a main, more orthogonal structure. So this is probably an addition, I would guess, or they did a really nice job of having it blend in. But we will find out. So here is interior shot that is also looks exterior. It's hard to even tell if you're inside or outside because like all of this beautiful exposed wood, and you can see the connections, and you can even see like what's happening here. Is this just an old reclaimed piece that is now I mean, I don't even know what's happening there, but all of these, like, you don't even see any connections. How are these even held together? So like that's one thing about I mean, here in America, woodworking is it's not this nuanced. The Japanese or the Chinese or all of the different woodworking knots and interlocks, like I don't even see how this is even truly connected. But you can also see the old, the dark with the new. So I wonder if that was intentional or I hope they tell us how much of this is new. But look at all these different window sizes. I mean, not everything has to be a freaking square. This roof is swooping down to provide some kind of element of privacy, but also you can still look out and are amongst just the greenery, and then you probably turn around from the same spot and just boom, there's the square center, and then everything else just crazy crazy off of it. So then you can even see an aerial. Wow, so this thing really pans out. This thing's really spectacular from a very formal standpoint. It's a private home, so the form, you're not losing a whole lot of productivity. I mean, we can speak about the efficacy of a single home at a different time, but currently that's what this project is. It's a single home, and if this is the original and then this was added on, this is, I mean, it even looks like that was redone, but they kept the original outside. And it even from here, it still looks very traditional. I mean, there's even a portal to there. That's also something that's very lost because we drive everywhere. We don't care about entrances and thresholds and walking through it. And the moment that you step off the street into a garden and then into the space outside the home and then into the home, those are several moments that can all calm you down, reframe you, turn you. But it can make you look at something. But yeah, this is just spectacular, and the very traditional, but then it's still very modern. And then so here, this is a funny structural thing. So they have this opening, but then there's a beam right in the middle. And you typically don't do that, but they could have been paying homage. They could have been stuck doing it, but it looks very intentional because it is dead center, and it's far enough back that you wouldn't actually run into it. But typically, running into it's a big problem. And then so one thing with all of these different windows, and especially the higher up ones, so which are called clear stories, it's able to bring in a lot of different elements of natural type. Like, I mean, it touches so many like peaks of sunlight that I'm sure throughout the day provide amazing shadows. I mean, this space here, I mean, again, they should show people lounging, but this is really nice. Like this is it's extremely tranquil and what a home should be. A home should be warm and you can really say this blend of old and new wood because obviously old wood is darker and newer wood is more orangish for the most part from the tree. And then here, after they're doing all that craziness downstairs, this is very straightforward. This is as traditional as it gets. Just a nice photograph. There's a little garden outside there. Little pathway. This is I mean, the proof is just sweeping down, but it's also high enough that it's not messing with anything. So there's a tea room, there's a bath. I mean, you can call it whatever you want. The kitchen, dining, study. I mean, it's really in structure. It's really an open plan. It's really quite beautiful. So there's this main four square here, but then that extends here. So that's the main bay. And then it really just adds another bay here. And these are all independent. But come back to lean and cast off of this. It's actually a square, so you can pretty project off. And it's not that big of a deal. So the bedroom is upstairs. That's interesting. And there's a private study. This looks. Oh, onto this one screen here. It looks as if it is meant to be. Why isn't this not working? There we go. So it's 131 square meters, which is how much? So a sense of publicness embodied by an old house. This project is a renovation. Okay, so it is an old and a new. It's a renovation of a house in Kyoto, originally built around 100 years ago, inherited and lived in from generation to generation. The site consisted of a rich garden that has been maintained over the years with a little two-story Japanese style house situated in the center. That's a little better written. The house is private property. Yet, since it stood in this place for a long time, it essentially had become parts of various people's lives, thus acquiring somewhat of a curious air of publicness that was more open and welcoming than any house with an open design. Interesting. This aims to create a new lifestyle while preserving the environment that has been cherished by the city and its neighborhood. So they blew out the walls and they kept everything else basically. A structure that generates new connections. A residence is for a retired couple. Yet, but the client's desire was a house where both people could was a house where people could gather. Since the lean-to extensions of the original house had been added and renovated to accommodate the change in lifestyle, the decision was made to newly construct 5 wooden lean-to spaces, leaving only the 2-story house in the center. Each lean-to is constructed in correspondence to the garden's environment. Interesting. So it's all based on the garden. The living room is surrounded. I mean, is this the living room? You're showing me. The living room is surrounded by some panthers trees, a kitchen with a high ceiling where sunlight enters, a tea room positioned like an annex next to the Japanese maples, a brief staircase filled with light and and study with a view of the starry sky. A bathroom permeated by. This is way too much in one sentence. They're putting the whole house in one sentence here. That's way too much. These 5 lean-to spaces, while serving as interfaces connecting with the old main house with the garden, are also new structures that support the existing main house, like flying buttresses. So it is structured both ways. They're holding each other up. As a result, the first floor of the existing house is relieved of the need for seismic restraint walls. The lean-to extensions that per se would be an additional element in itself, a structural format that creates a new sense of openness for the building. That's interesting. Show me a different shot again, because these things are structured that are actually helping this whenever there's a earthquake. You know, like, that's amazing. I've already said that, but yeah, no, I'm here. While the entire structure consists of the main house slash new lean-to spaces slash old garden, a variety of subtle schemes were set in place so as to dissolve this structure. The old staircase, old porch, and furniture were arranged in ways that traverse the boundaries between existing and new constructed areas. Interesting. And in addition, existing materials such as old fittings, alcove, posts, and siding are used in the newly constructed areas, and existing garden stones and trees were planted in the newly created garden. So they didn't just destroy everything, they reused it. That's awesome. While treating the garden, architecture, and furniture as of equal importance, the fragments of the environment that unfold across the entire site center on the spacious main house are re-edited and further curated into multiple overlapping layers that can be observed throughout. For example, a relationship whereby an old azalea tree stands beyond the new garden seen through the wooden fittings of the old children's room that has been installed in the new lean-to space that upon arrives when entering through the existing gates. And that's a lot of words. You can just say that the trees at the entrance. In doing so, I believe that points of contact will be generated in response to the impressions that various people had towards the house, thus giving rise to a new kind of open house. That was definitely better written than the last couple. I don't know if I completely agree. I mean, it's interesting. So they take this old existing, even historic house, and then they recreate it. They recreate it so that they're able to then do whatever they want, because then once they say, oh yeah, we have taken care of it, we are preserving the house, because I don't know, out here in California there's historical preservation. You're not going to be able to move a post and say, oh yeah, I preserved this much percentage of it, or if you do, it's going to be a nightmare. You might as well not even touch it. So the fact that they kind of deconstructed this thing and analyzed and said, no, I need this beam, I need that one, because the architecture is also a narrative here. That's what's beautiful about this. So whenever we look at this building, the architecture is the narrative, because it's old with the new all blended, and it's very intentional. I mean, whenever I was going through this without even reading about it, it seemed like, oh, is this an addition? Because there's old and new elements of wood. You can't do that with steel. You kind of can with concrete, but wood, you're also able to move these posts. I mean, these posts are clearly aged. I mean, that one's hacked off, you know, like so. There's old posts with new beams, new roof. These old, basically tree trunk, um, Joyce here, that's phenomenal. Like, and this is all exposed. You know, it's it. I wonder how cold it gets here, because there's no insulation in these walls at all. So you better hope it's a nice day, or else you're gonna need a cuddle buddy. That's for sure. Because I mean, at least the bedrooms on the second floor can heat rises and everything, but really, this house is a blend of the old and new, from the form to the material to the layout, everything. And the plan is just really wicked, and how it's able to truly bend these spaces and top them, so the kitchen both peaks in the old and the new footprint. The dining is in the old. There's an entrance to the tea room and the bath from the old to the new. So it's just interesting. I don't quite get these renderings though. They're a bit wild, but yeah, that's that one. A blending of the old and the new, and having a real narrative in architecture. That is absolutely crucial. So, until next time, deuces.